Hi everyone, welcome to the Sip and Spin. I am the Tipsy Spinster, and today in my glass is a lovely dandelion lemongrass non-alcoholic sparkling drink. And what I would like to share with you today is the Tour de Fleece beading challenge that I set for myself. This year I wanted to see if I could create a beaded beehive or cluster yarn. I have a single and applied version, and I'd like to share that process with you. So the first thing that you need in order to get started is some roving, and for this project I chose Napa Valley fiber. This is a braid from the Gold Rush kit. You need seed beads and a beading needle, and the beading needle that I would recommend is one that has an eye that's open from the top to the bottom, because I think that it just slides through the opening of the glass beads a little bit easier than the ones that have the smaller eye just on one end. And then you'll need something to string the beads on. It can be embroidery floss, it can be crochet cotton. I chose linen because it's a little bit stiffer and it matched the fiber really well. The first thing that you want to do is open up the braid. So open the braid up, and then I split the sections into two pieces. This fiber is a combination of different wools, and it's a little bit stiffer or coarser than what I traditionally work with. So I really wanted to make sure that I opened up the fiber, blended the colors a little bit, and made it easier to spin. I chose the fiber that was a little bit firmer in texture because I plan on knitting a purse and then using this beaded yarn as trim. So once it's opened, you can see the difference both in the color and in the structure from the original braid that wasn't opened up to what I did open up. So I would say prep your fiber and set it aside, and then string your beads. Now, this is the labor-intensive part of this process, so I would recommend finding your favorite podcast, your favorite audiobook, a good music channel, start binging Netflix something. This is the longest part of the process, and the way that I did it, dumped all the beads into a bowl, sat with the bowl in my lap and just beaded over the bowl in case I dropped one, and spent an evening putting beads on thread. You will want an even number because you're putting a bead both at the top of the beehive and at the bottom of the beehive, and I would highly recommend putting more beads on than what you think you need. Unlike knitting or crocheting with beads where you don't want too much weight on the yarn that you're working with, when you're spinning with beads, there isn't really a ratio or a rule of thumb because you can keep sliding the beads down on the spool. The only problem you'll run into is if you run out of yarn, which, as you can see on a big spool like that, that's not likely to happen. So as soon as you're done beading your yarn, get ready to make your single. This is the fun part. Remember when you first learned how to spin, and that's essentially what you're going back to. You're going to be creating a thin and thick yarn. The challenge is to do so evenly. So the way that I did it is I'm pretty consistent when I draft out, like how much I pull out. So I counted to 8. So I counted for each pull up to 8. And then I pulled out the thicker chunk that I wanted. And so I paid very close attention to what my single was. And my comfort zone, what I usually spin for singles, is fingering. So that's what I stuck with. And then for my thick piece, which is going to become my cluster or my beehive, I spun kind of more of an Aran size. It doesn't have to be big. And when I first started doing beehives, that was my biggest mistake. I ended up with these giant, big, fluffy. Oh, bless you, Mimosa. I have a kitten sneezing next to me. I ended up with really big beehives, and it was an interesting yarn, but it was a little bit harder to work with. So for this project, I went with the smaller clusters, and I liked what I got in the end a lot better. Choose whatever you like. Just remember to put in more twist. As you can see, I've got a lot of energy going on. I'm spinning the Z-twist, and you want more energy. As you can see, it's pretty springy there. As soon as you're done with your single, you'll want to grab your string of beads and your single and secure it to your leader. And I would definitely recommend using a leader for this and tying it on so you don't have either piece slipping. You want it to be consistent from the beginning to the end. Go ahead and start plying. And I plied very loose because, again, I wanted a balanced single if I could get it. When I do this, I usually keep the beads in my lap, and then you'll slide one up so it sits on the top of your beehive. Ply. Slide your beehive up to the top of the bead, and there should be a little bit of tension there. I mean, it should move fairly easily. I would not recommend using wool as your thread. You want something that your single is going to be able to slide up and down on. So linen, crochet, cotton, silk, although I don't know that I would use silk for this, but I mean, embroidery floss. I tried doing this with wool, and the wool on wool stuck. What you're looking for is a coil, thin on the top, thick in the middle, thin on the bottom. And then the way that I lock that bottom bead in is I do kind of a tight ply just underneath it and then keep going. And that's pretty much it. You just keep doing this until you run out of yarn, beads, or both. And then it's your choice whether or not you want to set it as a single or to ply it back on itself. So that's pretty much it. I am going to stop talking and let you just watch and learn. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to this year's Tour de Fleece tutorial. As always,